753 BC. On the river Tiber, a group of scattered shepherds huddled on 7 small hills. There were no cities, no temples, no kings, only pasture lands and tribal conflicts. And from these small settlements would rise the greatest empire the world had ever seen. But how did farmers, shepherds, and misfits build the kingdom of Rome? This is the true story of the foundation of Rome. Far before the empire, Latium was a collection of small groups of people. Latins, shepherds, and husbandmen had occupied the region around the Tiber around 1000 BC. By 753 BC, there were some villages that were concentrated on the Palatine, Esquiline, and Capitoline hills. There was natural defense on these hills, and beneath them, rich plains that provided crops and grass. Rome's initial inhabitants were not conquerors but survivors who encamped between rival tribes, the Sabines, the Etruscans, and the Latins. Geography gave Rome its chance. The Tiber River linked it to the Mediterranean, and the hills offered protection from invasion. Here was where the foundation of a kingdom was laid, not by kings, but by shepherds grazing sheep. Rome's myth of origins begins with twins, Romulus and Remus, born in 771 BC, exposed on the Tiber and nursed by a she-wolf. They compromised in 753 BC to establish a city, but disagreed over where to place it on a hill. Romulus killed Remus and was the first king of Rome. The Romans retold this myth for centuries as the divine foundation of Rome. But archaeology tells a different story. Shepherd villages united to become one people. The myth gave Rome identity, but the truth was simpler. Rome began not with gods, but with commoners uniting for food. Shepherds were Rome's original occupants. Sheep, goats, and cattle were grazed on the Palatine Hill. Mud, thatch, and wood was all that their huts consisted of. Archaeological evidence has been dated to the mid-8th century BC, which was the same date as Rome's mythical founding. Kinship and clan membership was what these shepherds used. The hills provided summer grazing, winter shelter, and water from the Tiber. Over time, there developed consecrated spaces, shrines to household gods, and gathering points. These shepherds didn't know, but their existence, sheep herding, agriculture, and living in community, was the rich soil where Rome would flourish. Rome's original shepherds were not lonely figures. Above them lay the sophisticated cities of stone wall, temple-scattered Etruscan kings. To the east lay the warlike Sabines. Rome was on a battlefield intersection, vulnerable but connected too. Its shepherds began to sell wool, cheese, and cattle to neighboring communities. But war was never far away. Battles and raids characterized the fledgling city. By their very nature, the shepherds were taught to safeguard their flocks and hills. Through time, their fraternity gave rise to a warrior culture that would define Rome. By tradition, the first king of Rome was Romulus from 716 to 753 BC. He organized shepherds into clans, built the first walls, and created a senate of elders. Rome was still a collection of huts, but Romulus added order, laws, armies, and rights to it. Subsequent kings like Numa Pompilius, 673–715 BC, added religion, temples, and calendars. Though half legend, half history, their times, archaeology confirms a gradual evolution, from spotty huts to small kingdom. From shepherds, it had evolved rulers. Rome was beyond a village now. It was emerging as a city. Rome's shepherds were in a crisis of sorts. No women. Without families, the town would die. Romulus invited Sabines to a festival around 750 BC. At his bidding, Roman men kidnapped Sabine women, a violent but necessary measure. War followed, but the women themselves intervened, demanding peace between fathers and husbands. This strange alliance fused the Sabines into Rome, doubling its strength. The episode, remembered as The taking of the Sabine women reflects not just violence, but Rome's earliest truth. Survival required unity, even at terrible cost. By 600 BC, Rome was no longer a shepherd's village. The Etruscan kings built temples, markets, and walls. The Palatine huts were absorbed into a growing city. The Forum became Rome's throbbing heart. Breath and Rome never forgot its humble origin. Even emperors traced their power back to shepherds on the hills. The destiny of Rome, to conquer and dominate the world she was familiar with, began with shepherds watching over flocks, uniting families, and building walls. From shepherds came a kingdom, from a kingdom, an empire, and from an empire, the agelessness of Rome.